afternoon, or good evening. I'm Audrey Wiggins, and welcome to another webisode of Make Something Happen. I'm excited to have in the studio today Jason Boarde, and he's hailing all the way from LA by way of Cleveland, and his organization is called Foodstuff. We'll hear more about that in a moment. Also this month, continue to plug in to Kimberly F. Brown. She's running for council in Ward 1 of Cleveland, Ohio. We also have Dorothy Smith. She's coming up from Columbus, Ohio, and Dorothy is putting on an event called Church Ladies on the Loose. There's going to be Kevin Vaughn. He's from Atlanta. He's from Men Let's Talk. It's not just a men's show. It's about the women. As well, from Atlanta, we have Iris Gathing, and Iris is going to teach us about being fit. So we wear clothes, wear well. So tune in for those webisodes coming up, and you'll be able to click on those every webisode for 6 to 8 weeks. But in the meantime, we have Mr. Boarde. And thanks, Jason,
yes,
in the studio. So tell us about what Foodstuff. What is that about?
Well, Foodstuff was a concept born in Los Angeles, part of the PPCLA project, which was an organization aimed at serving underserved communities, and basically using environmental education and food as a way to improve communities. But pretty much Foodstuff is a food literacy and awareness program. And what we do is aid people in the discovery and exploration of food, and also demonstrate food's relevance today. So things like food policy, food issues like food labeling, childhood obesity, things like that. That a discourse that we're creating that people should be talking about. We feel people should be talking about.
Now you're also a student.
I am.
And with urban development, urban studies?
Urban planning.
Urban planning. So tell us what you plan to do, or how the integration, how's that connected?
They do converge or overlap in some areas, but not all of them. I think more it's beneficial for me from the community development perspective. But as far as traditional planning practices, it's not that useful.
But you care about the rest of us.
I do.
Okay. Yeah. Within Foodstuff, within that literacy, so you're teaching us how to grow our own food, to eat better. What's the overall concept here?
We're pretty much acting as curators. We filter through all the information and content that's out there, and we bring issues that we feel are important to people to to the forefront. So as I mentioned earlier, food policy is definitely a hot topic or a buzzword right now. Obesity, whether it's children or anyone, is also a concern to people. And I think people are really interested in just, local, healthy, good food. And food access is another one. So food deserts, healthy corner stores, all these terms and phrases are very much in the mainstream dialogue that's happening. Okay, now how do you get this information disseminated? We have a newsletter, and right now we have approximately, it fluctuates between 3,500 to 4,000 subscribers within the entire Northeast Ohio region. That's awesome. Yeah, so we're relatively new on the scene here in Northeast Ohio. So one of the things that we've just really been focusing in on is kind of understanding our audience. And we've definitely been part of the campus community at CSU, helping initiate a new food policy group on campus called AAFPR, which is the Academic Association for Food Policy and Research. A lot of our focus really has just been, reaching out, developing partnerships and relationships. We've been speaking with the Cleveland Public Library, and developing some programming around literacy with that organization. And we have some other groups, really cool, really nice groups that we're working with as well. But a typical Foodstuff event, it's very hard to articulate what that is. Because it just really depends on the issue. So, people don't get too excited when they hear food policy. Event. Local food, that's more, people are more interested in that. And I don't think a lot of people yet still don't know what that is entirely. So we're trying to really understand the best way to go about developing events here. So a lot of things are in development.
Okay.
So what we're focused on right now really is just kind of, as I said, building those partnerships, but mainly just disseminating information.
Okay.
So you can go to our site, find a lot of information about these different issues and topics.
Okay.
And so the events are definitely scheduled for later this year.
All right. We're going to be right back on the other side of this message. We'll get some more information from Jason Eugene Boarde.
Thanks.
We'll be right back.
90% of vitamin D circulating in our body is vitamin D3, which is made by the skin after exposure to sunlight. That's why it's known as the sunshine vitamin. Vitamin D3 is actually a pro-hormone that has been found in almost every type of human cell from your brain to your bones. What's even more compelling, studies show that almost every major disease can be linked to a vitamin D deficiency, including many cancers and bone diseases. Health providers and the public alike are starting to take notice. The New York Times called it a vitamin with broad influence. Fox News reported that except for stopping smoking, there are not many other known interventions that are capable of such a reduction in the risk of death. Emerging scientific research indicates that vitamin D3 plays a key role in our overall health and well-being, and that we can all benefit from adding this supplement to our diet. Sun and diet alone just aren't enough for today's fast-paced lifestyle. By covering ourselves in sunscreen to avoid the sun's harmful UV rays, we are blocking our primary source of vitamin D. Secondary sources such as naturally enriched foods and products that are fortified with vitamin D do not contain enough to maintain healthy levels in the blood.
Jason, well, before a break, we were talking about education. But let's get into that real literacy piece about food. And when you say food stuff, is the things that food are made of? I know in the very beginning we talked about reading labels and just what is the goal there? You know, say if I showed up at an event, what would you teach me or try to inform me of?
Well, the goal is really to kind of edify communities and population groups. So some groups would be more are more prone to elements related to diet or nutrition. Diabetes and hypertension is definitely one of those issues, particularly in minority or African American communities. And then as far as, let's say, for children or kids that attend school, you know, the lunch program is an issue, obesity is an issue. And then for the general population, I think just understanding and being aware of, you know, the food system and what that is. And education is really what it's all about. Once, you know, when we are informed is when we can make informed decisions. So, you know, people eating at McDonald's might be adverse to that once they learn, you know.
French fries.
Those are good. They're quite tasty. But in moderation. You know, you know, understandably, you know, it's a very, you know, society is very, very busy today, and so sometimes, you know, we have to, you know,
grab something on the road.
Right, grab something on the road, make some concessions somewhere, but you know, it's basically food stuff. You know, we want to basically promote a healthy lifestyle, and also keep people informed about food and how food intersects with our, you know, their lives, our lives. So, and the topic of every day is what's to eat.
Right.
And so the, you know, the food that we consume has more it's more than just consumption of food and cooking and meal preparation and shopping. It's also about the environment.
Okay.
It's also about our health.
Yes.
So, you know, people are not really informed about how food affects different levels of our society. So that's what Foodstuff is really all about.
Okay. Can you get a little more deeper into that? About how, you know, you talk about how it affects society or our environment, you know, relating food to the environment.
Well, basically, you know, food production, for example.
Okay.
Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, to produce food, it's very intensive. I think the report by the Mechanical Engineers Institute reported that upwards of 80% of all fresh water in the United States is actually used for food production.
Wow.
So 80% of the water, you know, not to mention the water that we use for drinking and cleaning and other things. So as far as land use is concerned, about half of the country or more is used for agricultural production.
Amazing.
So these things have profound effects on, you know, who we are, what happens in our society and such. So that's why food policy is very important. And that's the ultimate, one of the, you know, also, as you were saying, you know, what is the goal of Foodstuff? Well, actually, that is probably the ultimate goal.
Okay.
Is to really, you know, get citizens to be more engaged in, you know, the policy matters that, you know, that are around food.
Yeah, and certainly having the internet and this, you know, the day and age in which you live in, it's easier to be more educated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
but I mean, policy doesn't really excite people, you know what I mean?
I know, like you said, the word policy, you know, itself, but when you come up with an organization called Foodstuff, you know, that's kind of hip, you know, it's kind of, you know, colorful, you know, that name, that title, so you can help us, at least get us to the table, so to be able to listen to what you're saying.
Yes. And, you know, we're not out to really, you know, we're not a hardline organization. It's not a hardline program. You know, at the end of the day, we just want people to be happy, healthy, and, you know, well fed.
Okay. And wise about what they're about what they're eating.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that we are examining is this new notion of hubbing.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, it's not a food coalition or a food group per se, but hubbing basically brings all these different components together that are around the food movement.
Okay.
So local food, policy, academia, research, etc. And, you know, a hub is kind of like a community.
Okay.
So, you know, there are a lot of moving parts and different things that make up a community. But it is, you know, a community or the hub is where people can go to get the information or resources or engagements that they're looking for.
I don't know if they have this in LA, but you know, we have the corners, the vacant lots, and they turn them into gardens.
Right.
Now, how does that fit into, is that part of what you do, or you're connecting with those folks as well?
Yeah, we're connecting with a lot of people here in the local food scene. We don't perform or execute community gardens or any type of programming like that, but we definitely promote those types of programs. We actually want to inform people in communities about programs like that are available and accessible in their community.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how does this affect our farming communities? Those folks who are, you know, for growing
like traditional farmers?
Right, traditional farmers, yes.
Well, urban agriculture doesn't really have a adverse or negative impact on traditional agriculture. And today, most agriculture as we know it is has converted to more of the commercial farm kind of model, which means a farm of X amount of hectares or acres is producing strictly soybeans. And those soy products are going into all the commercial food items and also producing other products like packaging. You know, there are so many different things that are made out of soy that I never knew. I think Nike has a new sports shoe that's actually half soy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing technology.
Go ahead.
So this is like, you know, the food technology. Who knew? This is, you know, very interesting. So, you know, those kind of things are the things that we like to really demonstrate to people like just how important and how relevant food is, and how wide-reaching it is.
Exactly.
Food doesn't just end up on your table. You just don't go shopping for it in the grocery store and that's it. So
right,
it doesn't,
right.
And it also doesn't disappear.
We're gonna be right back on the other side of this message.
This is your day to shine, your time to win. So raise your cup and drink.
Hii coffee ni nzuri sana, kwa hivyo tunatakikana kukunywa, alafu tunasaidia dunia yote, trayendo los tesoros de la tierra a la gente del mundo.
Your time to win. Why do the same when you can go? Why do the same when you can go beyond, 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 go beyond.
Another big issue or topic is food waste.
Okay.
Americans waste approximately 30 to 40 or more % of all food produced.
Wow.
And that's enough food to feed 235 million people a year. It's enough food to, the equivalent amount of all the food production in sub-Saharan Africa.
My Lord.
Yeah, so that's a lot of food being wasted.
That is.
So this topic is an important issue because it also has other ramifications. It has huge environmental impacts, as we just touched on earlier. Water consumption, energy, land use. The world population is projected to reach 9 billion by 2050.
That's not that far away.
No, it's not that far away. And most of the world's population by 2030 will pretty much live in urban environments or cities.
Okay.
So food is a very important subject that people should really be interested in. If we don't want our food to turn into something where, basically everything's processed, nothing is cultivated with love and care, nothing's, grown or, in rich and organic soils.
Right.
The food that we're going to be eating, it's going to be kind of like the food that we feed to our pets, or to, the feeds that they give to the livestock. It's all just going to be kind of...
You guys have got to go to foodstuffcleveland.org. What's the website?
It's foodstuffcleveland.org.
Yeah, foodstuffcleveland.org. You've got to plug into that. Because as you're sitting here talking to me, my mind is just reeling, and I want to slide back for a minute to was it Nike?
Yes.
With the soy-based shoe, or part of the makings of it anyway. And immediately I went back to thinking about landfills. So all of these things they're interconnected. When you talk about a hub, literally everything you're going to have all the players at the table. We can't operate in all these vacuums.
Right.
The garment, textiles. What are we making clothes out of, and how that stuff gets disintegrated. All of this.
Right. Yeah. Food is a commodity, and it's also a resource, and we need to change the way we think about food and how we consume it, how we produce it, where we throw it away, and then also what does that what can we do with that?
Right.
It's all about, moving toward a more sustainable existence,
okay.
a more holistic existence. And, food impacts, there's huge disparities as far as communities are concerned. minority and African American communities are definitely impacted by their food choices. A lot of these communities, particularly in urban environments, don't have access to healthy, good food.
Right.
So they are basically selecting, or their food options are kind of, not really good for them.
Okay, so limited.
Yeah.
Limited choices. I mean, when you talk about things like that too, it's the thing that's come out in the news, recently about the pink slime and different things like that.
There's pink slime somewhere?
And those burgers probably that you mentioned, earlier. But those types of things, when that's boiled down, you're talking about food policy, again, that's money.
Yes. It's all food policy. Everything, when it comes to issues that concern society or the public, it's a policy issue. And policy issues always involve economics, social aspects, and then other. So, but mainly socioeconomic issues. So, and yeah, I mean, economics is a major component of, the discourse that's happening with food today. It actually probably isn't talked about as much as it should be.
Absolutely.
Because food prices in one community can be very dramatic in another community. And also the quality of food in one community and the price is very different from the other community.
And what disturbs me is that news reports are made about this very thing. And several months ago, a few months ago, was done on the meats and the quality of the meat that you may get from your market that the people are bringing in, or somebody has, or a butcher, basically, as compared to what you might get in your chain grocery store or your small grocery store. And do you really want to drive 50 miles so you can go get a better cut of meat, or not necessarily a better cut, but a higher quality meat? But what disturbs me even more, Jason, is we get this information, these reports are made, and we watch the news programs like, oh, wow, really? Blah blah blah, and even with that, and the pink slime or the fillers, that are used into foods. So again, I'm taking it back to economics for somebody else, and I'm a business person, so I'm all about income, and being able to increase, and how can I get it more faster.
Well, value.
But, right. But then we don't do anything after the oh wow, the realist. We don't do anything after that.
Yeah, taking action, being an advocate. Yeah, that's another topic that I think we all kind of try to deal with and try to analyze that, and how best we go about really getting the community involved in issues, not just food, but anything that's concerning. Yes. And that really comes down to public capacity.
Okay. What is that? What is that, Jason?
Public capacity basically is the public's ability or the bandwidth. If you think about it in bandwidth, I'm sure you're familiar with that term, this technology.
Yes.
So think about it in a bandwidth, like their ability to, transfer and take in and put out information. Okay. So we're so busy with so many different things, and the average person spends, so much time just actually, shifting from one place to the next, and then work, and then this, and then coming home, their family, and it's just never any time. So like, how do we get here? How did that happen?
Yes.
So, we have to make time. It really comes down to personal choice. How much does your health, how much do you really care about your health? How much do you really care about your family?
Yes.
And, going back to values, what do you value? That's really what it comes down to. The value of not just food, and when I speak of value, I don't mean the price.
Okay.
Value and price is completely different. I'm going to travel or do whatever it takes for me to, promote or have a healthy lifestyle. Okay. Because I value, myself, and I value the people I care about and the people in my community. So I want to do whatever I can to make that, as good as possible. Okay. Versus, looking at it, how much does that cost?
Right, and it's that is, you know what? Let's take a break, and we'll be right back with Jason Eugene Boarde. This is gonna get deep. We'll be right back.
Studies show that you are likely one in a billion. One of a billion people, that is, that are vitamin D deficient. At least you're in good company. New research suggests that vitamin D may be one of the best vitamins for your entire body, since scientists have uncovered more than 200 different genes that are regulated by this nutrient. So if you want your vitamin D without harmful rays, spray it. Taking an oral spray helps for quick absorption into the circulatory system, tissues, and cells. Vitamin D3 spray is easy to take, perfect for those who dislike swallowing pills, and is 10 times easier for the body to absorb. So be that one in a billion that takes their health seriously. Getting enough vitamin D might be the most important thing you do for yourself. Vitamin D3 spray, a little drop of sunshine that will make a big difference for a long, healthy life.
Of Cleveland. Over the break, we were talking. He was sharing some very disturbing and interesting information with me about food insecurities, and what was the other part, Jason?
Food insecurity and hunger.
Food insecurities and hungers was that it's increased 11%, which is double digits. It's
Yeah.
increased doubly over the past decade. But Jason, let's talk more about that.
Yeah, the food insecurity and hunger issue, which is probably, for me, a very personal one and one of the bigger issues right now regarding food.
Okay.
It has to do with food access, but really it has to do with people in poverty, people who are disadvantaged, people who have to, make tough decisions every day and juggle, pay rent or buy food for my family.
Or quality food.
Or yeah. So food insecurity is pretty much people who are at risk of not having enough food or very little food, and whether that's over a cycle of time, whether that is repeated or endemic. And then hunger, they're hungry.
Yeah.
So people don't have enough food or any food to feed themselves, and so this issue it's big. That double-digit increase over a decade, 11% is a big number when you look at the total population of the United States. So the other issue, as we were discussing earlier, was food waste. And that also had a double-digit increase over the last decade of 12%. And there's
a huge disconnect here.
Yeah. So we got hungry people, and we got people throwing massive amounts of food away. So back that value system is missing. It is a disconnect. And so one of the campaigns and also research that I'm doing at my school, MakeSomethingHappen College of Urban Affairs, is doing something on starting to investigate the food waste issue, and also how we can relate that to or use that opportunity to address the social issue of food insecurity and hunger. And as it stands right now, the laws or policies that are in place, there are some laws and policies which encourage, establishments or businesses to donate their wasted or unwanted food items.
Okay.
However, acts or laws like the Good Samaritan Act are very vague, and also it's not that they're not clear, because it's very clear that it basically states that those who acting as Good Samaritans, donating food items, will not be held accountable or liable. Okay. However, that does not prevent anyone from, doing
filing a lawsuit.
Filing a lawsuit, yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of organizations, more often than not, are discouraged by that, because people do file lawsuits. People do get into litigation issues, and then it also is an issue, a matter of promoting or really creating some sustainable business practices. Yes. We're all taught as from an early age that waste of any kind is not good. And this is one of those very not good
That
ones.
is absolutely not. That is not good.
Yeah. So, you know, I want to see how we can, you know, maybe have some, you know, policy shifts, you know, by introducing some recommendations, whatever, that, you know, we can introduce something, change the language and the existing laws or policies where we can further strengthen what is already in place.
Okay.
And also basically change people's perception of, you know, waste and such. And also interject some sustainable business practices. Obviously, this will have to happen, you know, in incremental steps because, you know, people have their habits. But the food that would otherwise be wasted could, you know, address this huge social issue of hunger and food insecurity.
Yes.
And not just, you know, at the you know, from restaurants and catering companies and stuff like that, because that can be a bit controversial because, you know, that's considered table scraps and it has a very short time window of time
Life of the
to get that
quality,
food in a decent and dignified way to an individual. I think for opportunities as far as restaurants and catering establishments, the opportunity there is probably the best approach would be to use those table scraps and compost them and use them as soil additives to enrich the soils in our cities that we've damaged through pollution.
Yes.
And then take the retail and distribution wastage and, you know, allocate that or, you know, to human service agencies and charitable groups that need food. And not just non-perishable items like canned goods and stuff.
Right.
We're talking dairy, meat, all those
because they
different
could
things.
almost have waste on a daily basis or every other day, and the food centers and those types of distribution centers, they're operating on a daily basis.
Right.
So the turnover, you know, wouldn't sit there and get spoiled.
This is where the hub or the community comes in, because obviously if you are a grocery store in a community, you don't want to take that wastage and drive it all the way across town to the you know, the dominant charity.
Right.
But there are shelters and pantries and things in that community that can go just down the block.
That's
or,
right.
you know, just a few miles away.
Yes.
So, you know, hubbing you know, could be very beneficial. So, you know, how we, you know, intersect these things, I'm trying to figure that out in my research and stuff, so wish me luck.
I do, and I can't wait to read more about it. But as we're coming to a close, though, Jason, thanks so much for coming by. This has been an awesome education, even for me, as you talk about organizations about literacy in our food. And so I can't wait to learn more from you and just to really, you know, kind of shadow what you're doing. I think it's very interesting, very exciting. And so definitely want to plug into his website, Cleveland, it's Foodstuff Cleveland.
Foodstuffcleveland.org. I mean, sorry. It's foodstuffcleveland.org.
Yes, okay, foodstuffcleveland.org. So if there's any other closing words or information you want to share with us?
No, thank you for having me.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
Okay, and remember, you go out and you make something awesome happen in your community. And remember, start with you. And this is a very important subject today. So think about, before you take that next bite or sip, think about where it came from, how it was produced, and if you're throwing it away. Okay.